Welcome to Commander Central, Episode 3. Number 3 being a lucky number in traditional Chinese culture. It represents heaven, earth, and human beings. For us, Episode 3 features 3 hosts, one of whom likes 3 color decks, one of whom has 3 pets at home, and one of whom has 3 nipples. And you can try to guess on Twitter who has 3 nipples. Hint. It's not me or Chris. No. So this will be part 2 of our 19-episode series on Commander 2017.
Did you just say 19-episode series?
You missed that in Slack today?
We're digging deep.
Oh, I must have missed that one. Last time I go out and work on a boat.
Right. So this is the second part and final part. We're going to talk about the non-legendary cards in C17. Before that, we will talk about games we played and hear some listener feedback. But first, happy Eclipse Day, everyone. How was your Eclipse Day so far?
Oh.
You didn't even go outside to see it?
I did, and it wasn't worth my time.
How about you, Chris?
I attempted to look at it and then realized that my sunglasses were not UV protection and my eyes hurt, so I stopped looking.
So I went outside at the appropriate time, and there was like a dozen people from work outside, and there was a couple pairs of glasses someone had brought in, so they were passing those around. And while I was waiting for my turn, I tried to use my phone just to kind of like look at it through the camera, and that didn't work at all. And there's one of the employees in accounting, and her and I we get along fairly well, but she's one of those people that like doesn't believe dinosaurs are real because the Bible says that there's no dinosaurs, so therefore it's the devil trying to trick us. And that's a real thing. People believe that.
I actually found a whole Facebook page dedicated to dinosaurs not being real.
Yeah.
See, I don't want to go on to a religious rant, but I'm a religious person, and even I believe in dinosaurs. So,
well, her and I have had this conversation a few times, and she's also waiting for the glasses, and I was needling her a little bit, and I'm like, so what do you need the glasses for? And she's like, well, you're not supposed to stare into the sun. I'm like, since when does science know the first thing about what's right or wrong in this universe? Stare into that sun. She's like, no, I know it's not good for you, and I didn't want to try to like connect the dots to the next leap about dinosaur bones, so I just kind of let it lie there. But a couple other people nearby knew the point I was making, but I don't think she ever did. So
that moment when Dana loses his job.
Right, exactly. We were off work property. We were not on company grounds at that point in time. So I think I was safe, but so yeah, that's my Eclipse Day story. My son is gone. His grandfather came and got him on Saturday, and they went to Missouri, because that's like the perfect line where you get the like actual total eclipse. Okay. And we have 2 guys from the card store that went to Oregon. Yeah. And then of course they went to a card store to play Magic on Friday night. So they were posting stuff from the card store. I'm like, that's a pretty awesome trip. And I think they had some video today from the eclipse too they were posting.
yeah, I love the one guy had a video up of how he looked with all his glasses, and he had a full face mask on and all this stuff. It was quite amusing.
One of the guys outside today had a welding mask on he was using for the eclipse. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea.
I never thought about that.
Yeah.
It really looks like if you're looking at it through the correct thing, you can see you can see the moon in front of it, whereas if you're just looking at it through your phone or something, it's just the sun is not as bright as normal. So you have to have something to really appreciate it.
Yeah, I missed it. It's a sad day, but
We got, 2024, 2028 or something like that?
There's a partial one, I think, yeah. So any cool games from anybody last week?
Me and Chris played in a doozy of a game.
I kept hearing like things. I wasn't in the game. I was one table over, but I kept hearing bits and pieces about Max being down to like no cards in your library for some reason. So what went down there?
Well, it was my Brago deck versus an Animar deck versus your Sphinx's deck piloted by Chris.
Yep.
And the shop owner, Phil, was playing his 5-color Walker deck, which is Progenitus.
Okay.
Evil Progenitus.
Evil Progenitus. Throughout the course of the game,
because it was a long game too.
It was 2 hours.
It was a very long game.
Almost 3, I think. Throughout the game, I was giving Phil crap because I'm like, I'm just going to kill you first. You play only Planeswalkers. And so he's like, okay, I'm going to kill you first.
It's a Progenitus Super Friends deck.
Throughout the game, he got Jace Memory Adept to mill me at least twice, if not 3 times, with his 0.
Is that minus 20?
10.
10 cards,
Mill
okay.
10. So between him and just trying to keep his big stuff off the board, I was burning removal. So was Chris even.
Yeah, I cast Forbid, I think, 6 times during that game.
And it eventually got to the point where the guy piloting the Animar deck killed Phil because he was the only one without a blocker.
Okay.
But what he didn't realize is my only blocker for Animar was Archaeomancer, and that was letting me bring back all my counter spells and my ghost ways. And he decided to kill the Progenitus player after Chris was like, no, don't do it.
And I will tell everyone, this is not the first time I've ran into a game where I've told people you need to do this, and then I've been proven right that that's what they should have
Yep.
done.
Listen to Chris.
So at that point, I had 6 cards in my library until I was out. I ended up having to bounce Afara with Jace Unraveler of Secrets so I wouldn't get the trigger from the card draw.
Okay.
And the game ended with me having to use Kefnet to bounce a land to my hand, draw the last card in my library to be able to swing the lethal to kill the Animar player.
Nice.
Yeah, because Kefnet requires you to have 7 cards in your hand
Right.
in order to attack.
And the land plus the draw
Was
was
enough.
7 cards.
Nice.
It was very long. My brain was
And because you
dead.
left her that, you're like, all right, I'm out.
Yeah. A lot of fun, though.
My brain was good. I just cast Forbid on everything that looked bad because I was doing nothing else the whole game.
Well, because we wound up playing one game after that, a late one, you and I at least, against Phil's.
Yeah, it must have been midnight
Progenitus
when we
deck
played that
again.
game.
Was it just the 3 of us, or was there a 4th person? I think Frank played his dragon deck.
No, he played tokens.
Gave.
Oh, yeah, Gabe, yeah. And Gabe blew up pretty quickly in that
Yeah,
game.
he went Ancestral Procession, I think is the name of the card, into
Yeah.
Parallel Lives.
Anointed
and,
Procession
Anointed Procession.
and Parallel Lives.
and Luminarch Ascension online.
yeah, it was
Oh,
got out of
nasty.
control very, very quickly.
Yep, and then I was put into the position of Kingmaker, which I absolutely hate with a passion.
Right. Well, we got down to 3 people left. Well, because Frank got killed. We arch-enemied him out because he was so
Yeah,
far
I nuked
ahead.
him. Had to nuke him.
But then we hit a position where basically any choice anyone made would kill one person and give the victory to the other person. And so then Phil passed to you, forcing you to have to decide then at
Yeah.
that point.
And my choice was to kill one of Phil's planeswalkers and pass the turn.
Right. So then I just won.
Oh.
But it was it wasn't that I so much that I won. It was just that I just happened to be the person who was in the effort.
I figured with you, because you were so far ahead with playing Reki, you had so many creatures on board that you should have won the game. So I figured it was just the better choice was to let the person who should win.
Probably
win.
had the better board state, but I mean, it could have gone any way at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of when you get that Kingmaker position either, where you have to decide.
I usually just pass the turn.
And even when you win, it doesn't feel good to win, really, then at that point.
Agreed.
So, if there's no other interesting games to talk about, how about listener feedback? Was there anything this week, Chris?
Yeah, we heard from 2 people. I can't remember exactly what day it was, but Adam Darby at Adam D Fishing on Twitter commented on a tweet that I posted up there about 1v1 commander advice and the tourney that I'm attending next month. And he said it seems like a good chance to make a Rafik deck.
Is Rafik legal in 1v1?
I
believe
do believe
so.
so.
I think
He's just slow.
Rafik, he is. That's in 1v1. He probably is a little slow
Yep.
because you're going to play Skullbriar, right?
I am going to play Skullbriar.
Is there a particular build or plan you have in mind for Skullbriar?
Death.
Death, I guess.
Yeah, he does
Try to
I
nuke
mean-
as fast as I can with Skullbriar,
And he does
then
come
go
quick.
from there.
And particularly in Skullbriar, if you get a little bit of ramp, you can Skullbriar into Hatred pretty quickly and,
Yep.
and take somebody out.
Do whatever I
and
can.
Berserk.
Oh yeah, Berserk will
Yeah.
be in there.
When is that? Is that next month?
September 2nd.
Okay. Are you playing
So-
in that?
I am. I decided yesterday that I'm gonna play in that tournament and I'm gonna do Flipnissa.
Oh, okay. All right.
Elves. I figured between the 3 of us we have
And
all
that's
the pieces.
Yeah, that's a pretty aggro deck too.
We also heard from James Arnquist on Facebook, who said, "Fantastic at all as always. Welcome to the podcast, Chris. Wow, tongue twister. Blah, 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 blah. I just want to send a huge thank you out for the warm reception, and I plan on bringing my best to every show."
You have been doing a great job so far.
Yeah, you are, and we are happy to have you.
And I want to say thank you to Max, who's been doing a great job editing so far. And we also had a problem last week where our software that we were recording with crashed just as we finished recording. So the show you heard last week was our second take on it, at which point we're tired and ready to go home, and we still have to do another show that we had just done. And Max did a great job making it sound fresh, even though we were all pretty burnt out at that point. So good work, Max. Thank you very much for making us sound good.
Well, thank you.
So we're going to talk about the non-legendary cards in C17 today.
Specifically the new ones.
The new ones specifically, and we're not going to talk about all of them. There's a lot of them, and we don't want to. I mean, we kind of have a choice, or we can either talk about every card a little bit, or spend a little more time on the ones that we find interesting. So we're going to talk about the ones we find interesting. We're going to miss some, and if there's something that you want us to hear us discuss or hear an opinion on that we don't cover, feel free to shoot us a tweet, or message us on Facebook, or right, or whatever. But for now, these are the ones that we kind of thought were interesting and worth going into. We each picked 3. So I'm going to start with Teferi's Protection. 2 and white for an instant, and until your next turn, your life total cannot change, and you have protection from everything. All permanents you control phase out, and then you exile Teferi's Protection. So, first time we've seen phasing since Mercadian Masks, I think?
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's a kind of a complicated mechanic with goofy rules, but they actually changed the rules just for this card. They made it, because it used to be if a token phased out, it didn't phase back in, it was gone. And that's no longer the case. It now comes back in. So, like, on top of that, if you phase a token out that was wearing equipment, like a Batter Skull or something that was on a germ token, the equipment stayed gone.
Yes.
Because the token couldn't come back in, so the equipment stayed phased. And that's no longer the case as well. I don't know how relevant that's ever going to be in your average commander deck, but I mean, it probably comes up on occasion.
It could become relevant, seeing how we're heading back to Dominaria.
Particularly with this card. Except for I found a quote from Brian Hawley, who was the set. I think he was the lead in the set about phasing. And his exact quote was, "Enjoy it, but don't get used to it."
Okay, thank God. I don't know how I could do phasing in draft or standard or something.
Yeah.
It'd be a little complicated.
Well, and I'd been kind of wondering too if this was like a breadcrumb for phasing coming back, but at least based on that quote, I'm assuming no. So the first thing, like I saw somebody, I was reading a little bit on Reddit, and somebody called this Teferi's bathroom break because none of your permanents are in play. So like people can't even blow up your stuff, not on your turn. You can't take. So basically this is the card you can cast and be like, all right, I'm out. I'm going to the bathroom. Nothing that happens in this game I care about right now. I can't counter your spells because my lands are gone. I can't do anything. You can't touch my stuff. I can't die. I can't. So I'm going to the bathroom.
It's a great idea. Yeah.
I would say this is the best fog ever printed. I mean, it's like everything fog. Your stuff gets fogged. Your life gets fogged.
You get fogged.
You get fogged. There's really not a lot of downside to it. It's like defensively, it's an instant, so you can like cast it defensively against a board wipe, against a Cyclonic Rift. Like this is one of the few ways to get around a Rift. Someone Cyclonic Rifts, and you just phase your stuff out at instant speed. I guess Ghostway kind of would do that. But Ghostway, you lose your tokens because it's an exile effect.
Yep.
You lose your artifacts and you lose non-creatures.
Whereas in this case, your stuff is just gone. Someone casts Armageddon, someone casts Jocular Hops, your stuff is safe. So,
see, I find this interesting with those cards. It actually makes it more of you can play land destruction, even though I don't condone it. But you're still going to be ahead then, so you're not just like resetting a game.
Well, sure, for sure, because you can tap all your lands to float to mana, cast Teferi's Protection to phase all your stuff out, and then cast Armageddon or Jocular Hops or whatever it is, and blow up the board, and then all your stuff is safe.
Yep, and then at your next turn it comes back, and you are in charge of the game.
Yeah,
then.
and you have everything versus usually when you see mass land destruction, it's because someone has put a Kalia down and they want to, they're going to cast dragons while no one else has a board state. Well, in this case, you've got all your stuff. You even have your lands.
Yep.
So it's a defensive card. It's an offensive card. Now it exiles itself, so it's much harder to abuse. It's 3 mana, so you can't put it on an Isochron Scepter. But you can get it with a Sunforger. So if you're running Sunforger in one of your decks,
yes,
it'll be fetched for the Sunforger. I just really like the card. I think it does a lot of different stuff. I don't know if I'd call it like an auto-include necessarily, but there's a lot of different configurations where I would run this in a deck.
I find it as a good protection, and if you're playing a mono white deck, I mean,
I'm going to run it in my Planeswalker deck, my Dejero deck, because number one, I need defensive stuff, and I'm running Comeuppance right now for one that doesn't seem to work that great. So I'll run it in that deck for sure, and then I'll see how it works in there and see where else I want to play it. But I think this is a really, really strong card, I think.
Yeah. The one combo I did find interesting is you can put this on Elite Arcanist from M14 and have constant phasing.
Every single time.
Because when he enters the battlefield, you exile an instant card from your hand, and then you pay X and tap him, where X is the CMC of the card exiled, and you cast it.
Oh, that's so gross.
So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with this thing. Now, it doesn't let you abuse ETBs like Ghostway does,
Right.
but that seems like a pretty minor downside.
Yeah, minor downside to it. It's definitely an include in my Brago deck.
So your Brawl deck's going to get it. Do you have any plans to put it anywhere, Chris?
As of right now, no.
Okay. I really want to see this card play out and how well it works. All right, so what else do we have?
The next one, the one that I chose, Fortunate Few. 3 colorless, 2 white. Sorcery. Choose a non-land permanent you don't control. Then each other player chooses a non-land permanent he or she does not control that hasn't been chosen this way. Destroy all other non-land permanents. Kind of reminds me of like a Council Judgment, but backwards.
Sure.
Yes.
I was thinking of Tragic Arrogance, which is...
Yes, that's another good one.
Yep.
I don't like helping my opponents at the same time, but you could get rid of a lot of stuff that you need gone.
Yeah, and in this case, so it's technically a political card too, because people have to pick. So if there's like one person who's way ahead, particularly in maybe a 3-player game at that point, and the two of you are way behind, you can agree to give one person 2 things in 1/1, and you can really kind of screw over the person who had the strongest board state if you have a weak board state, or leave someone a card that hurts them, and there's different configurations for this that will do interesting things.
Agreed. I do like it that you can't choose 2 of the same thing.
Yes.
I love that
Very
part of
nice.
it. So then you can't really hurt someone or really gain an advantage.
But also, you yourself could get nothing technically because you pick something.
You don't control.
Right. So if the other people could not
Yep.
pick you too, like if they're mad,
That's-
if they're annoyed at you for casting it.
That's the other thing I was thinking is don't ever cast this when you're the threat on board because
For sure.
you're not going to get out of that one.
The art on it's pretty fantastic too, with the people on like the little clump of ground when everything else is blown up around them.
Yep.
That's pretty awesome. Do you have any particular plans to run this in any one of your decks?
As of right now, I don't, but I've been looking to see if I could slot it in somewhere. I'm not sure where I would slot it in, but
How about you, Max? You thought about using it?
I don't want to use this card at all.
The one thing I was looking at it when I first saw it, I'm like, and I was thinking about it, but I feel like I would probably use Tragic Arrogance if I wanted that effect.
Because
Number
you get
one-
to choose what you're keeping.
You choose what you keep, and you choose what
Yes.
your opponents keep, and it's a sacrifice effect too, so it gets around indestructible stuff. Whereas this is a destroy, so if someone has a board state with a bunch of indestructible things, or an Avacyn or whatever, but you can also pick that to be the thing that survives if they have one indestructible thing.
Yeah.
yep.
That's going to stay anyway. So
The other nice thing is that it's a choose effect, so it's not actually targeting. So you can get
Correct.
rid of hexproof,
Yep.
Yep.
shroud, anything like that.
I just don't see it getting a slot over just a generic board wipe in any of my decks.
it wound up being one of those cards I think that looks fun and interesting and cool on paper. And I want to see someone play it, and I don't actually want to play it myself. I don't.
Yeah, I would like to see it played, so
Yeah.
then I see how it plays out, and then you'll have a good, thorough idea whether or not it's worth it to put a slot in your deck.
Okay, so my first card is Territorial Hellkite. He is 2 red for a dragon with a 6/5 body. He has flying and haste, and he reads, at the beginning of combat on your turn, choose an opponent at random that Territorial Hellkite didn't attack during your last combat. Territorial Hellkite attacks that player this combat if able. If you can't choose an opponent this way, tap Territorial Hellkite. So I think a 6/5 for 4 is amazing, especially with haste.
That's super, super aggressive.
And the way I picture using him is gearing up for the one opponent I really want to swing at last.
Okay.
So it
yeah.
gives me 2 turns to equip him or put something on him to make him bigger, so I can deal 6 to someone on the first turn. That leaves players 3 and 4. Okay, hopefully player 3 randomly. Hopefully the person I don't want to swing at doesn't get chosen randomly, but it does let you kind of manipulate who you try to save who you want for last.
And having haste on him is really nice too. I mean, he comes on out of your hand immediately and is swinging.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always nice to see on a dragon. 6/5 is a really strong body for 4 mana too.
That's the biggest thing I'm seeing right now is a 4-mana dragon at that, especially if you're playing that in a dragon deck where your dragons are 6 mana plus.
Yep.
Trying to lower your curve so your deck plays faster and better is probably a better option.
Yeah, I mean, you need to run. I had a Tarka World Renderer deck, I ran it for a little bit, and I even had a couple of, I don't know if I had Dragon Whelp in there, but I had 1 or 2 of those like real not great mid-range dragons, because you need to do something on turn 3 and 4. You can't just be running 5 and 6 drops.
Right.
And And this kind of fills that problem a little bit. I mean, it gives you a 4-drop dragon that's really aggressive that you want out early. The big problem this guy has is when it's down to you versus somebody else, then he's basically has exert. You can only attack with him every other turn.
Right.
And that isn't a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't know if there would be really a way around that, especially because if depending on your build, you probably don't have anything that you're going to put on him that you could tap him to do an effect or something before the ability kicks in.
But even then, like a lot of times you've seen a dragon deck, a lot of times they're running greater good type effects to sack the dragon when someone blows up the board or something. Even if you've got like a Life's Legacy in hand, casting 4 mana for this and then casting Life's Legacy for 2 to draw 6 cards, so basically 6 mana, draw 6 cards, that's not terrible in red-green.
That's great.
So if you have those built in, I would be much safer to run him in decks that were running those kind of sacrifice effects, because even if he winds up being useless because it's 1v1, you can still sack him to get an effect out of him.
Yep.
Yeah, very aggressive dragon. The other thing I thought about it though is like there's a bunch of 5-drops that are pretty decent. There was the Theros dragon whose name I'm forgetting. Stormbreath dragon, who's I think 5 is pretty aggressive, but still 4. It's nice to have something to do on turn 4, and there's not a lot of decent dragons available at that part of the curve.
Is Glorybringer 5 or
Glorybringer's
4?
5, I think.
Glorybringer is 5. Both Glorybringer and Stormbreath Dragon are both 4/4s for 5 mana.
Yep.
With flying and haste.
So this guy's still a 6/5 for 1 less
Yes.
with that downside. And it's also like chaos effects are kind of fun to play
Right.
sometimes too, where like you don't know where this is swinging every turn.
Especially on turn 4. Maybe
Especially on turn
late
4.
game, he might not be worth it,
Right.
but early game, mid-range, yeah, you're good there.
I mean, as long because in those colors you should be playing more of an aggro base anyway, so the more damage you can dish out the fastest, the better.
All right, moving on, we will go to the only original land in this set, which is Path of Ancestry. We've got pretty consistently a new land every year, whether it's Command Tower originally, but Myriad Landscape, we got Opal Palace, there's the one that brings the land from, or your Planeswalker to your hand, Command Beacon.
Command Beacon, yep.
That was in the set. Arcane Lighthouse was in one of these. So usually every year we get at least one new land. This year it's Path of Ancestry. It enters battlefield tapped, which is usually not so great, but the ability is tapped to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, of any color in your commander's color identity to your mana pool. When that mana is spent to cast a creature spell that shares a creature type with your commander, scry 1. So right away, let's look at the ETB. It comes into play tapped, enters battlefield tapped, which is always something you don't love, because the difference between a Guild Gate at 10 cents and Volcanic Island at $400 is entering the battlefield tapped. Like that's literally the difference. So the land better do something good to come into play tapped. And in this case, basically tapping for any color in your commander's color identity. I would say if you're playing a 4 or 5 color deck, a land that comes into play tapped to make any color mana you care about is probably worth it. Like ignoring the scry effect, I would probably run this as a land in a 4 and 5 color deck, even if it wasn't tribal.
I'd probably run it even a 3 color.
And I'd consider it in a 3 color. But definitely 4 or 5, a non-tribal deck, even if it never scried or just scried in my commander, it's probably worth it in that case.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
In a 1 or 2, I would say you probably, at that point, you have enough lands that make all your colors, because there's only 2 colors to care about.
Unless you are running tribal.
But if you're running tribal, then, right, we're like, even if you figure not every turn are you casting your creature, but I would say every other turn you probably are casting an elf or a dragon or goblin or whatever your tribe is, and you're getting a free scry in that, and the only cost is it came into play 1 time tapped. So I would say there's a lot of decks that want this.
Oh, I love the card.
I don't know if my Sphinx deck is going to run it. Number 1, I only have 18 Sphinxes in the deck, and it's 2 colors, so I'm not sure if that's quite enough. It's close, but if I was running almost any other tribe I can think of, I'm running this.
It's going in my 5 color slivers, I'll tell you that.
I'm going to put it in my vampire deck, which is going to be a 3 color Mardu Edgar deck. So I'll put it in there for sure.
I'm definitely going to slot this into Audric for the scry.
Oh, yeah.
Not for the color, just to filter through my mono white deck.
But also in an Audric deck, you do have, by virtue of him being a human,
right?
You just accidentally probably have
1,000 humans.
Yeah, I mean, like I would bet 10 humans. I would bet in that deck
more
pretty
than
easily.
That, yeah.
Right. So without even intentionally trying to run humans.
Right, and I think he's human soldier, so you can.
So you also have soldiers.
Soldier.
Yep.
So would this be something you might consider, how we were talking about earlier with your 1v1?
Too slow.
You think it'd be
I
too
think
slow?
in 1v1 it's too slow.
Okay.
And you don't need the color fixing on top of it, so I don't think I would
I'm
use it there.
just the scry effect in green.
Scry effect's useful. I don't think 1v1 though. I
No.
don't think you want it
I'm
there.
not sure. I have yet to play the format, so I'm not sure exactly how to
Now,
go
like
about
a
it.
two-color elf deck
Green,
in
black.
multiplayer Commander, I'd run absolutely in like a green-black or green-white elf deck if you're running either Reese or I don't know what the other elf options for green-black would be, but both Reeses, one is green-white, one is green-black. Either of those guys, I would run it for sure in an elf deck if I was running a two-color Goblin or Merfolk or white-blue birds or something. Anything where you probably are running 20 plus creatures, particularly if it's like a swarm deck where you're every turn casting one of those tribes.
Yes.
It's a really strong card. And hey, I'm running 5-color dragons. I'm just going to auto run it because it's another command tower. It's
Right.
an ETB, even if it's just an ETB command tower in a 4 or 5-color deck, it's worth it. So, I am very happy with this. Do either of you two? I know you asked, but do you have any plans for this in any of your decks? Do you think?
Slivers, for sure. Because
Slivers,
I
sure.
play 5-color slivers, so.
That's worth it. That's a good call.
Odric.
And Odric. Okay. Yeah, I have nothing right now aside from vampires, but I like it. I'm curious what the price winds up being on this too, because if you remember, Command Beacon, and probably still is almost 10, I think.
Yep.
And I could see this easily ending up at the same price range.
Command Beacon's still up that?
It's only had that one printing.
Yeah. And a Judge Foil.
I think I have like 2 or 3 of them, so I better
there you
check
go.
that price
There you
then.
go.
So, on to the next one.
On to
Yes.
the next one.
All right. Next one we have is Magus of the Mind. 4 colorless mana, 2 blue. For a creature who is a human wizard with a 4/5 body. 1 blue, tap, sacrifice Magus of the Mind. Shuffle your library. Then exile the top X cards, where X is 1 plus the number of spells cast this turn. Until end of turn, you may play cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs.
Interesting. So this is Mind's Desire.
Yes.
On a dude.
That's exactly what I looked it up to see exactly where this was coming off of. So, and my biggest thing I got to say about this is combo players unite. Seems
Yes,
like
for
a
sure.
good way to really combo off.
Not even. I mean, just value town on this is pretty solid. The problem with Mind's Desire, particularly like outside of a storm environment or something, is it costs 6 mana. So, EDH people ramp and stuff, but 6 mana is still a lot of mana. And if you pay your 6, you might only have 2 or 3 mana left to have cast previous spells to get even though this doesn't have storm on it,
Yes.
you probably haven't been able to cast many spells before this turn to get much value out of it. Whereas here, you're spending your 6 mana. Now, granted, you can't use it right away or unless you have haste, but ideally, you probably don't want to because if you wait the next turn, you get those 6 lands back. Hopefully, have even put another land, and then only spend 1. Then you can cast whatever multiple spells you want to with that mana to increase the amount of times you can exile cards and cast those for free.
Yeah, and worst comes to worst, if you have to, you get 1 card out of it.
Right.
Because it is 1 plus the number of spells cast this turn.
I mean, aside from the vulnerability factor where he has to sit there a full turn, if you have a way to keep him safe and keep him alive until it comes back around, he's better than Mind's Desire.
Yes.
Oh, I would agree with that. Well, not to mention he's a 4/5 creature, so if he's doing nothing else, he's swinging in for 4.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're playing him in the Kess deck, which he's coming in Wizard Tribal deck, well, you come in and make a copy of him and use that one, and
Yep.
then you have this one for the next turn, so it's even
Oh,
better in that particular
broken.
build. And he doesn't exile himself when you sacrifice him to put him in your graveyard. He's just in your graveyard. So if you have ways to recur creatures and bring them back, you can do it again.
Yes. I definitely think Sensei's Divining Top and this card would be set up really well.
Mm-hmm.
Or anything that allows you to look at the top X amount of cards of your library, reset them up, and then pop him off, and there you go.
In your Azami deck, who cares if he doesn't come and he uses his ability right away? You just tap him and draw your card
Right.
until
Yep.
it comes back around again. Like I said, with your Kess deck, you can, have your spell set up next turn because you're making a copy of him. And there's just, I'm really curious to see where this guy all shows up because all the Maguses are interesting, but I really like this one. I was not expecting a Mind's Desire on a body to show up in Commander, but we've got him. So do either of you two have plans to use this guy in anything?
As of right now, I don't, but I'm theory crafting
Okay.
a deck that could put him in there.
Anything
I
from you, Max?
don't have plans to use them. I just want to see someone use them against a huge spell casting opponent because it's not just your spells, it's all spells. So
Right.
defensively, at the end of your turn, I'm going to chuck them and then, oh, look, there's my Cyclonic Rift, and I just blow your board.
Huh? Nice.
So what do you think about this in your the red blue goblin gal that you run?
In Mizzix.
I run a
Mizzix.
lot of X spells, and you can't pay X
Yeah.
when you cast things for free. X is
Okay,
0.
I suppose.
Otherwise, it would be great.
Yeah, because I mean,
It
you
refills my
reduce so many.
library.
Yeah, you
That's
reduce
what
so
I
many
like about it.
things.
Yeah.
So
Now the other one is Melek, who you cast off the top of your library.
Right.
And then does it copy it when you cast it off the top of your library? I believe.
I think that is correct.
I haven't looked to see how he interacts with Melek, but that would be interesting there as well.
that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Melik, play with the top card of your library revealed. You may cast the top card of your library if it's an instant or sorcery. Whenever you cast it from your library, copy it, and then choose new targets.
So there's a bit of an because he's gonna. So Melek's ability won't trigger off him because he exiles the
Right.
cards, but he'll still fit in the deck if you're running a Melek Spellslinger kind of deck. He'll still fit in there.
Well, I'm curious about a cascade deck with this.
Or Jaleva, where Jaleva decks sometimes tend to run like a lot of really high CMC spells because they're trying to hit them off the attack
Yes.
trigger. So this is you're casting them for free. You don't care. So this fits nicely into your Jaleva Spellslinger deck as well.
Agreed.
All right, I think Max is up next.
Yes, so my next one is Traverse the Outlands. It's a sorcery for 4 generic mana and a green. Search your library for up to X basic land cards, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. Put those lands into play tapped. Then shuffle your library.
So this is one of those cards like I read it out. I thought I read it wrong at first. I'm like, it can't do that thing that I just thought it did, but it does.
This, yeah, exactly. This card blew my mind the minute I first saw it.
Oh, and I believe is it in the cat deck? I think. I guess I'm not positive, but I
think it's in
assumed
the
it was.
dragon deck, actually.
Is it? But okay, so let's say let's say you put it in your cat tribal deck with Areo, where you give your cat +3/+3, and now he's a 5/5, and then you double him with Areo to 10/10, and then you cast Reverse the Elwens and grab 10 lands for 5 mana.
Yep.
Or your dragon deck where you put your giant 7/7 dragon in play and grab 7 lands, and it's not targeted either. So like if someone removes the creature that's your biggest creature, well then it just scales on to the next one.
It's a Rishkar's expertise
Right?
situation.
Yes. So the problem with something like Soul's Majesty, which is a draw, is you target your own creature and you then run the risk of someone path exiling your creature and getting nothing for it. Rishkar's Expertise gets around that because it's just based on the creature with the largest power, and it's the same deal here. It's a creature with the largest power, so like it's much more difficult to make it be nothing.
I read this card and I immediately thought of your Mina and Den deck.
That's where I'm gonna put it in there for sure.
And just, I mean, even if you have one of the Hydras out, the one that has power and toughness equal to the number of lands you control,
Mm-hmm.
and then a Valkut out, and you drop this, it gives you another Boundless Realms option.
Right. Even if Mina and Den are just out, it's 4 lands for 5 mana.
Yes.
That's
awesome.
still really, really good. Because Explosive Vegetation gets you
2
2
for 4.
for 4 mana.
Yes.
So like even if it's just Mina and Den, it's a great value for me.
No. We've had this discussion, Dana. Does this card make you analyze how many basic lands you're going to be running in the deck you put this in?
Probably.
Like, will it make you add more?
I don't know. Number one, I try to stay at least at a dozen basics in my decks, which is probably less than I still should have. In Den deck, I think I'm running 24 basics total. And you know what? I think if I'm getting to the point where I don't have enough basics to get, I'm probably doing so well that it
Right.
doesn't really matter.
And it does say up to,
Right.
so you don't have to grab the
Yeah.
X. I just know in Dramoka, I only run 17 basics, 18 basics.
That's still a lot, I would say.
Right. But I also, all my ramp is for specific forests or
Right.
plains. So this is making me want to toy around with my land base a little, just so if I cast this on turn 7 when I drop Dramoka on turn 6, worst case scenario, are there actually still going to be 5 basics in my library somewhere? Probably, but you don't know that.
I never thought about it like that.
I think any deck that wants to ramp and has a lot of big creatures probably wants this. I mean, I would probably run it over Vegetation, any deck that's running Explosive Vegetation. It's 1 more mana, but it's probably going to get you 3 or 4 more lands for that 1 more mana.
This card takes a little more to do. Like, you just can't cast it
Right.
on turn 5 with no creatures out. Where Veggies, you can cast it on turn 4 because you're just getting lands.
Right.
So I think that's where the people are going to draw the line. Am I creature heavy? Am I not creature heavy? Is it worth waiting if I really need that ramp?
Now, I do run Boundless Realms, in Den deck, because it's a landfall deck and it cares. But I don't think Boundless Realms is the kind of thing you run in your average deck that isn't a landfall
No.
deck, because it's a lot of mana. What is it? Fundamental Realms is 7, I think, to cast, or 8. Is it 6 and 2 or 5 and 2?
Boundless Realms is 6 and a green.
6 and green, so 7 mana to cast. This is 2 less than Boundless Realms. That 2 mana, it makes a huge difference, though. Like at 5, you can run it as a ramp spell in maybe a deck that doesn't necessarily care about
Lands you have in
the
play.
lands, whereas Boundless Realms, you really don't want to be messing with it unless it's doing something aside from just ramping you.
Right.
And I think this threads that needle nicely, where it can be just a great ramp spell, and you can also run it in your deck that wants landfall triggers for things. So, yeah, I still am a little bit like surprised whenever I read it. I still kind of go, really? That does all that? And even if you're only doing it for 3, that's still pretty decent.
3 for
If
6.
you're putting
yeah.
3 lands into play for 5 for 4 and 1. If you're
Yep.
putting, that's still better than veggies at that
And-
point, probably.
And it's still better than casting Cultivate
Yeah,
2 times.
right. Yes.
Agreed.
So, I like this card a lot. I think it's almost too expensive to just casually, but I think it's okay. I think at 5 mana you can run it in a lot of places.
I think so too. As long as you're not running a heavy multicolor deck, I think.
Right. Now, if you're playing green, you're probably not running Gilded Lotus. But Gilded Lotus at 5 gets you essentially 3 mana. It's not 3 lands, but if there was a situation where I was running Gilded Lotus, I would absolutely run this over Gilded Lotus for sure.
Oh, any day.
I can get behind that.
Next, we have Kindred Boon. 2 and 2 white, so 4 CMC for an enchantment. As Kindred Boon enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. And for 1 and a white, put a divinity counter on target creature you control of the chosen type. Each creature you control with a divinity counter on it has indestructible. So, Darksteel Plate costs 3 to cast. This costs 4. Darksteel Plate costs 2 to equip. This costs 2 to put a divinity counter on something. Darksteel Plate is indestructible, but the divinity counter you're putting on something is mostly indestructible. I mean, people occasionally run ways to remove counters off things, but
Not often.
not often enough for it to be something you really need to consider. So this is essentially an enchantment Darksteel Plate. And Darksteel Plate, you can move around to different creatures for 2. In this case, for every 2 you spend, you're not moving the plate, you're just making it also indestructible. So if I want to move Darksteel Plate from my commander to some other big creature that comes into play, I spend 2 mana, and now the second creature is indestructible, but the first creature loses it. In this case, they're both indestructible. So the problem with it then is you have to pick the creature type. It's not just like generically put a divinity counter on something. You have to have chosen the type. So again, you probably want to run it in a tribal deck. But if you're playing Angel Tribal, red white angels or something, those are all 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 drops for some of them. And aside from Avacyn, original Avacyn, they don't think any of them have indestructible. If you're spending 6 mana on your angel to just throw 2 more mana onto it to make it indestructible at instant speed whenever you want to, so you don't even have to choose. You can wait until somebody targets one of your angels and spend your 2 mana to throw the counter on it. That seems like a pretty decent deal in that kind of a deck.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot. Using it defensively is always fun to do.
I'm really considering it in my Sphinx deck for the same reason. Those are big, expensive beater Sphinxes, and being able to protect them at instant speed with an indestructible counter, or 2 or 4 if I have mana free, and I'm thinking I'm gonna Sphinx Red at the end of the turn, at the end of my opponent's turn before I start my next turn, and someone casts a Wrath. Well, even if I have counterspell mana free, maybe I don't want to counter. Maybe I want to throw Divinity counters on 3 Sphinxes and let the rest of the board die.
Yes.
Or will somebody then not cast the Wrath they thought about casting just because I have this out? So it's also a rattlesnake. They can see it there and they have to then decide, okay, I can't Wrath now until I deal with that Kindred Boon. So it also changes people's gameplay.
True. Now, here's a rules question. When Kindred Boon leaves play, do those divinity counters mean nothing then?
I believe so. Each creature you control with a divinity counter on it has indestructible. So if that isn't in play, it's just a divinity counter. It
That's
doesn't
what I was
do
wondering.
anything. However, if your creature has a divinity counter from some other form, this gives them indestructible. And all the Kamigawa dragons, no, not the dragons, the Myojins from Kamigawa,
Okay.
Come in with
divinity counters on them. So if for whatever reason, right, and they're all mono colored, so really basically if you're playing the white Myojin, you might want to run this because it goes indestructible. I don't know. I don't know if anyone would ever be in that position, but like it does. It's kind of cool in that it interacts with a previous tag.
Right. I was just looking up what other cards came with divinity counters.
Is it just the Myojin?
I believe it's just the Myojin. Yep.
Or however you pronounce it.
Now, what about the artifact? O-Stone? Does
Look,
that do
Oblivion
divinity
Stone,
counters?
That does not. That does a something else counter, but it's not divinity.
Because
I
I
think
thought
it might be
about that when I
Fate.
read this card.
Fate
Fate
counter.
counter.
There we
Okay.
go. Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna use it. I think in my Sphinx deck. I'd be really tempted to do it in an Angel deck, maybe even a Kalia deck, where you can, particularly if your Kalia deck leans demons or angels or dragons or some way. So I think I'm gonna use it in some place. Now, what I was wondering, do you run Indestructibility, the aura in Ural, Chris?
I do not. The only one that I run is the one that gives flying and indestructible
The white
depending
green
on
one.
coloring.
Okay. I do run Indestructibility in my Sigarda deck.
Yep.
And I was kind of wondering if I want to replace that with this as well. Because I could this costs more. Indestructibility costs 4 to cast. This costs 4 as well. So I'd have to spend 2 more to put
I
the counter
believe
on
this
Sigarda.
would play better in your Sigarda deck over my Ural, because my Ural is focused on auras,
Yes.
whereas your Sigarda is focused on enchantments.
Right. So in your case, Earl only gets a +2/+2 if
From
there's
an
something
aura.
on him.
Yep.
So it's probably worth running there. I'm trying to decide in my Sigarda deck if I want it, because occasionally board wipes happen or a rift happens or something, and I lose. If I lose that aura, I guess I wouldn't lose it to a rift, but if I lose the aura somehow, I have to, then Indestructible's gone, the aura's in the graveyard. In this case, assuming they don't destroy the Kindred Boon, if I have to recast Sigarda, I can just put the counter back on her.
Yes.
And unfortunately, though, she's the only angel in the deck,
Right.
so it would really only be her. But it's not like I cast Indestructibility on my Verdurn Enchantress anyway. It's always going on Sigarda 99% of the time. So I'm thinking
unless
about
it
maybe
really
trying it
hits
there.
Things really go rock bottom and you gotta go like idle on a blossom,
Right,
suit them up.
Yep. So I think I'm gonna try it there. I'm at least pondering it there as well.
Yeah, it's running through my mind for our fellow player Frank with his Kemba deck. If he doesn't change it up, this could probably be something he should think about putting in there
Yeah.
to prevent Kemba from dying repeatedly and then his deck pretty much shutting down after.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure he's changing. We were discussing it today. I'm pretty sure he's changing Kemba to one of the 3 new cats. He's not sure
Okay.
which one, or even Balin.
He should go Balin. Man, that's just such a good card.
Yes, it is.
All right. What is next?
We have Kindred Charge.
The second one of because this is a full cycle.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Kindred Charge.
4 colorless and 2 red for a sorcery. Choose a creature type. For each creature you control of the chosen type, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Those tokens gain haste. Exile them at the beginning of the next end step. So basically my thoughts were mono red goblins. Enough said. Mic drop. Done.
I heard Splinter Twin was good. So this
Yeah.
seems like a bunch of Splinter Twins seem like they'd be
There's
really
a reason
good.
Splinter Twin got banned in my
Right.
Ugh.
I mean, this is a straight up win condition in like Perforos tokens. In a Perforos deck that's, hey, I've got 6 tokens in play and I'm gonna copy all of them and Perforos.
Make 7 more.
7 more, so doing 14 more damage.
Yep.
I mean, this can just kill people in Perforos. Or in Krenko, where you're trying to make it, I've already got my 14 Krenko tokens. I'm going to make 14 more, including a copy of Krenko, my original Krenko will then die. But because it has haste, I can now tap the new Krenko to copy all the tokens that are out now to make another 28 tokens that all have haste on top of that. And if you happen to have some other haste enabler, you can recast your original Commander Krenko and then tap him.
Yep.
Yep.
I mean, there's a bunch of stupid stuff this does. If you have even if you just have like ETB stuff, like if you're playing like Kess Wizards, I've seen a lot of the Kess Wizards builds where people are running as many wizards with ETBs as possible because she makes a token when your wizard comes into play. So even if you're just like doing Value Town, I've got 9 wizards out with my Kess deck, I might as well double those ETB triggers off Kess. They're probably not going to kill anybody, the wizards, but that's just ridiculous value.
Well, I also like this card. Due to mono red, they have quite a few effects of copying, like in instant sorcery. Copy it, do it again. Copy it, do it again.
Right.
whatever else you need.
There is an infinite chain with Dual Caster Mage. If you cast this and then flash Dual Caster Mage with this on the stack, the Dual Caster will resolve, allowing you to recast Kindred Charge, which then bring a copy of Dual. So you can infinitely then flip to copies of as many tokens as you want at that point. So you have a baked-in easy combo right there, and probably in the Kess deck that's just with this. But like stuff like, hey, Reaper King. Reaper King's 5 colors.
Yep.
And that's all ETB for the most
Yes, it
part. All
is.
Scarecrows. Or my slivers are now 6/6s because I've got, this sliver that gives them all shadow. This one gives them +4/+4. If I count copies of all those slivers, I'll copy your Magentic sliver and your 5-color sliver deck or whatever it's going to be.
Yep, I was thinking of even just if you have a harmonic sliver out and like 3 other slivers and you copy, you can wipe the board of all artifacts and enchantments.
Yeah, I mean, in slivers, this is going to be gross.
That's
a bunch of
exactly
decks-
where my mind was going with it.
Like, there's a bunch of decks where this just wins you the game.
Yep.
Probably.
Yeah.
I know 6 mana seems steep in red, but if you're playing it in mono red, you should be playing all the mana doubling artifacts anyways.
Probably,
or
right.
mana ramp artifacts, so it shouldn't be too hard to cast.
And most of the red token-ish decks that care about this are either mono, or a lot of them are green. There's red green goblins, and there's red green dragons. I mean, if you're running if you're running a Tarka Roadrender deck or something, even if it's red green, all your dragons have double strike, and even if you have like 2 or 3 dragons out, and you cast this, and now you have 4 or 6 dragons out, all which are probably 4/4s worst case, if not bigger, all which have double strike, and now you've created twice as many. You just kill somebody.
Agreed. I'm
So-
so excited for this
This
card.
is a super cool. This is the best of the Kindred cards easily.
Yes.
And it's good because we don't need to come up with like, if you have this and this and this, it's good. It's just good.
Yeah, I mean, even if you have to cast it to hit one of your creatures to copy them, but it has an amazing ability with it, you're getting value out of it.
Yeah, this is going to be a card in a lot of decks.
It seems like a less broken. What's the red card you hate because people only play it when they're behind?
Insurrection?
Yes, it's a less broken insurrection because
Yeah.
it's your stuff and you have to be playing tribes.
So do you have any plans for this
No,
in any
not at all.
decks? I was thinking about Mina and Den too, just because a lot of my creatures have ETB, like fetch a land or do things like that. So I was actually kind of considering it in there as well. I'm not sure if I will.
What about vampires?
So many of my vampires are so small, and you only get the token trigger
On cast.
on cast.
But if you have, let's say you have
But I have a bunch of them.
5 tokens out, and then that are vampires.
Yep. No, I
You
have
have
10.
5 regular vampires out. You copy them. That gives you
10 more vampires
10 more vampires,
that are all going to get +1/+1.
and they all have haste.
And I do have a bunch of stuff in there like Door of Destinies and United Procession and Cathar's Crusade, all of which care about numbers. So,
Yep.
so maybe.
Maybe.
Or even Yeheni. I've got Yeheni in there, but who cares? I make a bunch of tokens and sack them all to Yeheni when he becomes like grossly large then for a swing.
Yeah, I was just thinking of a way of just all of a sudden going overboard on one turn to if you have to just nuke
Yeah.
through someone's monster board state.
And if you want to do it, Sundial the Infinite can save the token at the end of turn because
Yep.
you can end the turn with them with the sacrifice
Yep.
in the stack and keep them all. So it's probably not worth running unless you're already running Sundial the Infinite. But like I've seen, there are decks that include that, and there are red ones that include it. Zillion of the Claw, mono red dragon tribal deck is not uncommon, and he's got like a sneak attack effect that you can bring a dragon into play, and end a turn you sack it. But that deck almost always runs Sundial the Infinite, so you can keep your dragon at the end of the turn. And so why would you not also run this? Because you're just copying dragons as big, and the chance that you happen to have Sundial out and you get to keep the copies then.
I suppose even if you have a good sack outlet like Altered Dementia or something, before the
Right.
end step comes, you sack them all to altar, mill out a whole bunch of people, and it's like, okay, I got double value off my tokens.
That's a gross card. All right, what is the last one we've got here we're going to talk about, Max?
The last one is Disrupt Decorum. It is a sorcery for 2 and 2 red, and it reads, Goad all creatures you don't control. Now, for people who aren't familiar, Goad was a mechanic in Conspiracy Take the Crown,
Yep.
so the second Conspiracy set, and it means until your next turn, those creatures must attack, and they can't attack you.
So they have to hit somebody who isn't you.
Right. And I didn't think it was that amazing of a mechanic until our friend Nate
Yeah,
built a Grenzo Havoc Razor deck. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'll take 2. Okay, but now your general has to attack someone, not me.
It's super annoying.
Yeah, it's super annoying.
It sucks so bad.
And not like in a like stasis lock annoying. It's just it messes up your plans. It's annoying in that it throws like all the things that you decided you're gonna do. You're like, oh man, I can't now.
And
That's
you can't
changed.
get payback is the thing.
Right, exactly. And you get those times too where like the board state is kind of gummed up because everyone has 4 creatures out or something, and no one quite wants to attack because of the crackback. But you maybe don't want to blow up the board either because you're like, I've got good creatures. I don't want to lose them necessarily, and just reset. Well, in this case, all right, I'm going to cast, disrupt decorum, and the board state is suddenly ungummed because everyone else is swinging, and they're not swinging at you.
Right. What I also like is you could save this for when it gets down to 1v1.
Right.
Because they have to attack if able, and they can't attack you. So, it's just us. You can't attack me, so now your creatures can't attack.
Right. So you've essentially fogged their creatures when
In
it's 1v1.
red. I
In
love
red.
it.
Yeah. And there's even stuff like Ganji or Gahiji Honored One, where a creature's attacking your opponents get +2/+0,
Yep.
and it's got red. Why would you not run this in there? Because it's even more havoc then.
Yep.
All people are attacking each other then, and their creatures are that much stronger.
You got this smile on your face saying that, but I know for sure if someone did that to you,
I
would
hate
not
it.
be
Yeah,
happy.
right. No, I would not like it at all. But it would be cool to see. This also can break up alliances. Like if you're like, okay, in a situation where like we have to team up to beat this person who has the best, who's doing great. All right, temporary truce, and then that person casts Disrupt Decorum. Well, there goes your alliance because you have to hit each other.
What you said right there goes with the flavor text of dinner and politics don't mix.
Yes, exactly.
And I actually was incorrect. I'm reading the rule on this card. If a creature doesn't meet any of the above exceptions and can attack, it must attack a player other than the controller of the spell or ability that goaded it if able. If the creature can attack any of those players but otherwise could attack, it must attack an opposing planeswalker controlled by an opponent or the player who goaded it.
Okay, so if it's 1v1, it doesn't fall. You do have to attack.
You have to swing through.
Interesting.
So it's kind of like a bite into Thassa that forces them to attack.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, still, though, that still could be useful if they're like holding up their weenies to block off your stuff without trample. Then this clears those weenies out of the way.
Right.
So it's still useful. Any plans to run this in any of your decks?
I want to put this in my Mythics deck.
Oh yeah,
'Cause
Interesting.
it'll be 2 red, and I don't get attacked.
I like it. How about you, Chris?
I'm going to try it in Alesha.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Gonna
Yeah.
see just for the simple fact of trying to force everyone to attack each other and then leaving it open so I can come swing it through with my little guys.
I don't have any plans for it. I just like the throw this thing out there and let's see what happens because I have no idea where this is going to go.
Sit back.
But something that's good for me is going to occur.
Yes.
You don't know what it's going to be, but it's almost always going to be to your benefit.
Till I forbid it.
Right, exactly,
Or-
and then buy back.
Board wipe.
So those are the 9 cards we all kind of found most interesting and wanted to talk about for whatever reason. There's a couple more cool ones we could get into, but I think I kind of want to keep this show a little bit short because we went long last week. It's not to say there aren't good ones like Alms Collector. I think is pretty neat because it draws a mono white. I think Curse of Opulence is kind of cool if you're running a deck that cares about sacrificing artifacts like Duretti or Brea or something. But I think we'll keep it brief and just stick with those 9 for now.
But totally, let us know if you guys want us to talk about any of these cards.
Because this is a really good set. There's like a lot of cool stuff in this set. This is my favorite Commander product, I think, so far.
Still a fan of Commander 13.
Commander 13 was really good,
So
but I like this one a lot
this
too.
is probably the second best since I got into Commander.
I'm just sad they didn't give me a Slivers tribal deck. Makes me cry.
That or Merfolk are the tribes we don't see.
Yeah,
But then again, going back to Dominaria, we might see those tribes.
and we do have 4 tribes coming next to land as well. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, we talked about Magus of the Mind, and this is going to be our sign-off question here. We've had 19 different Magus of the X cycle cards printed so far that are essentially taking like an older, generally a pretty strong card from Magic's history and putting it on a body. So what Magus of the X card, Magus of whatever, would you guys like to see get printed? And we'll start with Max first here.
Okay. So Mine is called Magus of the Mystery.
Magus of the Mist. Okay.
It is 1 in Bant. At the beginning of your upkeep, it investigates and creates a clue token.
Oh,
So it's literally Tamio's
nice.
journal on a body.
There we go.
Interesting. I like that.
And
I
you
really
you
do.
like tokens, or
I-
you like clue
I
tokens. a
love
lot.
investigate. So if this is a way to get investigate back in colors,
Magus of the Mystery. I
Magus
like
of
it.
the Mystery.
That's great.
Interesting.
Chris, what do you got?
I have Magus of either Shadow, Fear, or Intimidation.
Okay.
Sacrifice it to give all your creatures whatever, so makes
Shadow,
them
Fear.
unblockable till end of turn. But I believe it needs a downside of some sort.
So in this case, instead of it being like a particular card, it's a mechanic, a Magus of a mechanic.
Yes.
Yep.
I like that.
I guess
I
like
don't think you would have to, because there were cards that gave all creatures shadow to end of turn, or gave all creatures fear. Yeah, there's no reason that wouldn't work as a one time.
but I think it needs a downfall of some sort, such as can only be used on creatures with power 3 or less, or you can only activate this if you have 4 or more creatures, or something like that. But I totally want it to be broken. I want it to be black, 3 MC, ability cost of about 3, and make them like a 1/1 or something, so I can just keep recurring them with Alesha.
Nice. All right. Oh, there you go. Just for your Alesha deck.
Yep.
I wanted to see Magus of the Tax.
Oh.
Say land tax on a dude.
That's great.
So if you
I'm assuming he would be white then.
mono white, and I'd probably stick with the same land tax casting costs and same basic rules as land tax. If an opponent has more land than you during your upkeep, you can tutor up a plains to hand, or 3 plains if they have more than you. Tutor plains to hand during your upkeep and get 3 if an opponent has more than you.
So you would limit it to planes and not
I'll
just
li-
basic lands?
I would limit. Yeah, I would probably do it plains now, because it is just basic land in the old version. I would
Yep.
probably limit it to plains, but I don't think it would be broken. Even if it was basic lands, it still probably wouldn't be just fine.
No, it wouldn't be broken at all.
And actually, I
No.
said land tax. I said cost 3, but land tax only costs 1. It's a 1
It does.
drop. I don't think this couldn't probably be a 1 drop. You'd have to make it like a 2 or 3 drop.
I do believe all the Maguses follow the original cards.
I think
CMC,
most of them
though.
do. I don't think. Maybe they do, because what is there's a Magus of the Candelabra.
Yep. I'm looking for Candelabra right now.
And there's a couple that are based on the lands, like Magus of the Tabernacle.
Okay.
So that wouldn't match for sure.
Magus of the
Yep.
Motus 4, Motes 4.
Yeah. But I think a lot of them do if they can, because I know like
Yeah.
Magus of the Mind matches Mind's Decider at
Magus
6.
of Will is at 3,
Yep.
which is Yawgmoth's
Yep.
Will, and
Candelabra is 1 generic mana.
Is that what the Magus is?
Magus is 1 green, but
Huh,
the Candelabra is an artifact for
Is
1.
also 1. All right. Well, there we go. So they do try to match him, it looks like. All right. Well, then he's a 1. He's a 0/1. I would make my Magus of the Tax a 0/1 for 1 mana.
just make them just no
Land-
protection
land-
or
land-
nothing.
Yep. Land tax on a dude. No protection. 0/1.
Jeez, that I could get behind that one. I really could.
I tried to look for something old and like that felt like one of these cards, because most of them are based on something kind of old and weird
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So
I just wanted to be greedy and have something break.
But
Breaking something.
I assume we're going to get one of these every year. It seems like.
We've been getting one. We
And
got
they-
one last year.
And they even threw it in Conspiracy 2, got Magus of the. Which one was it?
Conspiracy 1 got Magus of the Mirror.
That's what I'm thinking of. Magus of the Mirror.
Otherwise, it looks like every Commander set since Commander 14 has had one.
And the rest were all in Time Spiral block.
Commander
I think.
13 had one. Time Spiral Block had the rest of them. Yep.
Yeah, I'm assuming they're going to keep going with this, because I do
Seems
believe
like
I
it.
saw some Twitter posts from I think it was Merrill, he had a big thing going on about guess what it is, the new Magus, and
That's
everyone was guessing on it.
Because that was his preview
His
card.
preview
Yep.
card was, Magus of the Mind.
All right, that is it for Commander Central. We'll be back next week with a brand new show. I'm Dana.
I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.